What's up, guys? We are back. Fitness Profit Multiplier, Anthony and Jimmy. Today, we're going to be talking about how to improve your show rate. So, we all want leads to show up. That's what we want. Obviously, that's the best part when they show up, because typically, if they show up to meet you in the gym, then they're going to buy. Typically, 99% of the time. If someone actually drove to your facility and met up with you and is sitting in front of you, they actually want it. They took that initiative, right? They invested that time to come and meet you. Now, how do you improve that show rate? Getting them in the gym. How do you improve that? We're going to talk about this one thing that is underrated but severely effective to help you improve your show rates.
Extremely effective. And we have to look at it from a bird's eye view, right? We have to know what's going on with your business in and out. We have to know what's going on. And a lot of people will say, oh, it's bad messaging, it's bad leads, it's this, that, and the other. And oh, well, people just don't want fitness, or it's hard to sell fitness. And there's all these things that you can put into your brain that are outs for you, right? That are like giving yourself permission to be bad at what you're doing, right? And a lot of gym owners will do this. Oh, well, I just want to help people. Or, oh, well, they just don't get our system. They don't get the way that we do it. Or, well, this source of leads is bad, right? So this is not working for us in our business. But there's one thing that you're not doing that will open up your mind to why things are actually not going your way. And that's the main thing we're going to talk about.
Yeah, but before we get into that, I'm going to push it back to you, Jimmy, since you're the numbers guy.
Yeah.
So most people will talk about show rate, and they do it based on feeling. Oh, I have a really good show rate. People always show up when I book them. Do they?
Right.
Do they?
Yeah.
Like, most people think that they're better looking than what they actually are. Are they? Or are you an ugly mug?
Yeah.
So, Jimmy, you're the money guy. I'm the money guy. You're the numbers guy, right? Like, you're the one that looks at the numbers and the data. So let's talk about show rate when it comes to percentages. What should we be looking at here? So for gym owner listening to this, or any salesperson listening to this and that fact, what should they be looking for? What rate is a good show up rate that they should be striving for? Because again, you have to do things based on data. You can't wing this shit, guys. You just can't. It's not going to work like that.
You can't wing it. And when we look at good show rates, now, I did say you can't blame the lead source, but we have to segment lead sources, and we have to segment intent with leads, right? A website lead, a referral, a digital lead, a cold calling list, a Google ad lead, somebody that saw your Instagram organically. All of these things are different. A walk-in, all of these lead sources are going to have different rates of show, right? So if we're looking at aggregate show rate for the entirety of your business, every lead source that you get leads from, we should probably be aiming for a 70% show rate. Okay. So if you take every lead that you get from every source altogether, should be around 70%. Okay. Of appointments that go from being contacted to being booked, from the book to show, should be around 70. Okay. Now, if we're looking at this from a perspective of digital advertising, and we're just segmenting that one category of leads, we're looking at somewhere between 40 and 60%, right? 50% is still pretty decent from a Facebook ad, an Instagram ad. They're generally a little more cold, right? So you're not going to see as big of a book to show rate from those lead sources, but you see a huge show rate on referral website. If you're only running your business by referral and website, you probably don't have enough volume of leads to grow at a certain point, right? So we have to look at these metrics and segment them a little bit. If you're at a 40% show rate on your appointments from Facebook, that can be improved. Okay. 40 to 60 is pretty decent. 60 is really what we want to see on a regular basis, because the 60% show rate is what translates into you getting a higher conversion rate on the actual ad itself. So if you have a lower show rate, your conversion rate is going to be significantly lower because you don't have as many opportunities to actually convert these individuals. But so that's generally it. 40 to 60%. 60 is good. 40 is okay. If you're less than 40, you really have a problem. Okay. But there's one thing that you can do. There's one very important factor that nobody's doing that we want to share with you today. So, Anthony, is it time? Is it time to share with them what the one thing they need to do is?
Yeah. You want me to do it or you want to do it?
You do it. Yeah, go ahead.
So the most important part of this, and this is what we give our sales, anyone that comes on our sales calls and comes on our sales training that we help out, any gym that we come on, I always give the person homework. And the homework is they have to listen to at least one of their calls from that day. Now, if you don't have a software that tracks and records phone calls, then you need to do something. Do it on Zoom and put the phone, like whatever, like have your phone here and record it off Zoom. You need to be able to listen and evaluate and genuinely disconnect yourself from listening to this call and objectively look at what's going on. Because when you listen to a sales call, one of your sales calls, you can pick out all the things you did right and all the things you did wrong. Now, here's where I put my little spin on it. I think that you need to listen to the sales calls that converted, a successful sales call. Most people will tell you got to listen to the bad calls. Listen, you can listen to both, but I like listening to the good calls because the good calls allows you to point out what you did right and what you need to repeat. Okay, this person converted on this sales call because I did this. My tone here was really good. That's why they converted. We got to focus on the positive portion of sales calls because sometimes you get on the phone with people and they're just not good people, right? They're just shithead people. And you can't base a bad call off a shithead person. You just can't. If the person's not engaging with you, yes, there's probably some things you could do to engage with them. But just some people are just off put right off the bat because they're cold traffic. They don't know you. They don't trust you. You're just another schmuck to call them. So you can't really base what goes on in those bad calls as real, true feedback. But by listening to what happens on a good call and a call that converted, then you could really pinpoint, okay, I did this really good. I need to repeat that. I like the way I said this here. I probably could have tweaked that there. But listening to at least one of your sales calls every day will improve the amount of things that you need to do. Will just improve that show rate, just that one little thing. And it's going to take you 10 minutes out of your day to re-listen to it. The software that we use, it allows us to listen to it at like 2 times speed. So if a 12-minute call is really a 6-minute call. But in that 6 minutes of listening to it, it's 6 minutes of actually studying what you did right and what you did wrong. Same thing with lifting. Jimmy and I are powerlifters. If I want to get better at my squat, I video my squat and I watch the feedback. Because when you're in the moment, when I'm actually doing the squat, it might feel right to me. But then when I watch it on video, I say, oh, my heel came up there a little bit. I could have braced a little bit harder. I loosened up here. You could pick out all the things that you did wrong. Same thing on a sales call. You have to be able to listen to it. It's just so important.
Yeah. Sales call review is super important, not only in the vein that Anthony said, if you are the individual making the call, but reviewing the sales calls of your staff. So if you're the person that is now in control of the business and you are the CEO of the business, you have other people dialing for you, you have other people selling for you, you need to review their sales calls because the call is what gets the appointment to show, the quality of the call. Now, as Anthony said, you're going to have a numbers game element to this process. So there's a numbers game. There's certain people that are never going to buy. There's a certain percentage of people that are never going to buy. They're just looky-loos, tire kickers. All they're doing is just filling out forms to fill out forms. That's part of the game. Okay. So reviewing calls where somebody's just super cagey the entire time, don't open up about anything, you can't get through to them at all from the beginning of the call, isn't super valuable because that person was never going to buy in the first place. But when you look at these calls that are either you almost had them or these calls where you were successful at converting the individual, these are calls that are worth reviewing, because if you review the medium calls and the good calls give you like cannon fodder and confidence and knowing where you did those things so you can identify it and repeat it. And the medium calls give you opportunities to look at where it went off the rails. Because a lot of times when you have a medium call where you think you almost got them booked, there's one thing that you said wrong. There's one thing that you didn't convince them of. There's a little bit of a tweak that you can use. So if you're doing the dials, review your own calls regularly. One call a day is the minimum. If you can do more, right? We want to really evaluate these things. If you don't have any good calls at this point, review good calls from other people on your team, right? Like we have our staff review one of our other staff's calls because she has really good calls so that he can emulate what she's doing on the calls, okay? But if you aren't reviewing calls on a regular basis as an owner and as a practitioner of this, you're not doing the due diligence that you need to do to improve upon what you're doing. Practice, review, practice, review, practice, review. It's a skill and it needs to constantly be worked on. It's not like training people in the gym where, yes, you want to work on that stuff regularly, but at a certain point when you're training people in the gym, it's your job and you do it all the time. So you're getting better at it. You're seasoned with it. It's something that you do. You've done it for years. Sales, calls, that needs to be a refined skill at all times.
Yeah, and one more thing I'm going to say before we cut out. You can definitely get rusty on sales calls from a little bit of time off. It's funny because it's like you almost have to grease the groove. Even on the weekend, let's say you work Monday through Friday and you take Saturday and Sunday off. Those first couple of calls on Monday are going to be a little bit rough. They're going to be a little. It's so funny how fast you get kind of rusty doing it. But once you grease the groove a little bit, so what I would do Monday morning is I would listen to one of my own successful sales calls before making the sales call. This way, I'm kind of like, okay, I'm prepped. I'm kind of like amped up, and I'm trying to shake that rust off before I start dialing, right? So you can get rusty. It's one of those skills you got to just constantly be doing. It's funny because it's a simple thing, and when you get really good at doing sales calls, you can almost like do them and not really pay attention. But you got to like be in the groove. Like it's got to be well oiled all the time. Like you know how you're really good at sales when you could ask people questions and convert them to the next step. And I don't want to say you should be half listening, but you can almost like do other things in the background while that call is going on because you just refine that skill so much that it's just repetitive to you. Because all sales calls are pretty much the same, right? Like you're going to ask always the same questions. The goal is to get them from point A to point B, and you're always going to have your little points along the line that you have to ask them. And all these things come second nature, but the more you listen to it, the more you get into that groove, the better you're going to be. So if you guys want help with any of this, if you want us to train your sales staff, you want us to look at your sales scripts, just click the link below, hop on a call with us, and we could walk you through the process and what it looks like to work with us. But until next time, Anthony and Jimmy, Fitness Profit Multiplier, we are out.